Hi. Before we begin to learn how to play our fiddle, I think it's important that we learn the parts of the instrument and what they're called and what their functions are. Now, of course, the thing that that's most obvious is the violin or the fiddle body. Now, it is one instrument, so you're going to hear me say violin and you're going to hear me say fiddle. Fiddle is so much more how we play it. There are certain small adjustments that we make to make them sound more fiddle and less violin. But you'll hear me say both words, and I hope that's okay with you. So yeah, this is the most obvious. The upper bout, the lower bout, the C bouts of the box that we know of as the violin or the fiddle. This one was made for me by a famous bluegrass fiddle maker named Arthur Connor. He lives in Copper Hill, Virginia in the Blue Ridge Mountains. He made the top out of spruce from Italy. He made the back and the sides and the neck and the scroll out of maple from Virginia. And yes, this is called the scroll. The scroll is at the very top of the violin, and the scroll identifies each luthier. Every luthier who carves violins, violas, cellos, and basses, the string instrument family, has their own distinctive style, artistic style of scroll. I find the scroll to be one of the most beautiful shapes that there are. And then, of course, the arch under the peg box. Under the scroll, as I said, is the peg box. The peg box is holding the tuning pegs that are fitted, they're tapered fitted, so they hold tight in the holes. And that's where we attach the strings. Now, please, don't start turning your tuning pegs. People, you're either going to break your string or your string will come completely off, and then you're going to have to go get some help. So just leave these be, and I will teach you later on how to adjust them very carefully when it's needed. For now, these are the things that are holding the strings. Now, after the peg, the string passes over the nut, which keeps the strings in place, keeps all four strings from moving around. They go over the fingerboard. The fingerboard is this polished piece of ebony, and it's the fingerboard because we're going to put our fingers on it. The fingerboard sits on top of what we call the neck of the violin, which is also polished, very smooth, to allow my thumb to travel up and down effortlessly while I put my fingers down to make my notes. Then those strings pass over this area. You see this area is kind of white, got some white powder on it. That's the rosin from my bow. And we'll talk about that later. My bow makes contact right here and goes across the string. And when it does, it makes it vibrate. And that vibration gets picked up by this very important little guy. It's called the bridge. The bridge is carved out of maple, just the same as the back and sides and the neck and the scroll. Maple. This maple is a very hard wood, and it senses the vibrations very, very closely. This maple transfers the vibration of the string down through something called the sound post. There's another piece of maple inside this box. If you look in yours and look right in here, you'll see it. It's called the sound post. Please don't try and move your sound post. It takes that vibration and brings it all the way to the back of the instrument. And that vibration, if you were able to put your hand underneath it while you're playing it, you'd feel it going, mmm. That vibration is what makes our sound. So we have the string on the peg, over the nut, down the fingerboard, hitting the bridge, the vibration going down to the back vibrating, that piece of maple vibrating, making the sound, The string has to stop somewhere, so we attach it to the tailpiece. The tailpiece is an awfully important little guy. It's got to be only a certain distance from the bridge and a certain distance from the back. The tailpiece fits over the saddle right here, hooks into the end pin. And that's how your strings are attached over the instrument. There's a couple of extras that we put on. One is the chin rest, although I think it should be called a jaw rest, because I prefer to keep mine right here, right under my jawbone. I don't like to keep it under my chin. It's uncomfortable. It also doesn't leave me room to play. There's another accessory that I put on mine. It's called a shoulder rest. Now there are hundreds of different kinds of shoulder rests, and you're going to have to experiment to find out which one suits you, which one fits you better based on your neck and the structure of your jaw and how you like to play. So I use the shoulder rest. I do not recommend any one particular shoulder rest. This is mine, and it suits me very fine because it helps me keep the whole thing on my shoulder and under my jaw. And that is all of the parts of your violin. I think it's awfully handy to know all of that before we begin to play.